Hey, it's Norm from Tested. For today, well, you can see I'm at home again. A couple weeks ago, I brought you here to show you a new computer I was building, a new PC. It's a Haswell-E system, a top-of-line system. I showed you all the components, but there was one component that I didn't get a chance to talk about, and that's the GPU, the graphics card. And that's because I knew there would be a refresh on the graphics card lines soon. And what do you know? A week after I built that system, Nvidia announced their new 2014 high-end graphics card. Their new line, it's called the GTX 900 series. Well, we have it here today. The GTX 980. It comes in this box. It's kind of a fancy box for a graphics card, and this is their reference board, which I've been testing for a while. I actually have it installed it already and done some benchmarks, but wanted to show you how it was presented. And there it is, the GTX 980. Now behind it, I have the card that I was using beforehand, the GTX 700 series. Nvidia did skip over the 800 series again. I think there are maybe two fond memories. 800 series has always been so good for Nvidia, but this was a 780 that I've been using for a long time, and I know a lot of people bought the 780 last year because it was pretty darn fast. Well, what do you know? The 980 even better. Let me talk about the graphic card and the chip it's using for just a bit. It's using the new architecture, while the 700 series was using Kepler, and that was with the 780, 780 Ti, 770, the Titans. This is Maxwell. It's not actually the first Maxwell graphics card Nvidia had released. Previously, they had the 750 chip, which was actually a graphics card, which was actually the Maxwell version 1, and it was an ultra efficient, low power GPU, but on the budget side. This is the new Maxwell, though. It's the beefiest GPU that Nvidia has put in a graphics card so far, but has all these advantages, power efficiency advantages that they've built into Maxwell. So right now on top of the line, there's the GTX 970 and also the 980. I've been testing the 980. Compared to the 780, they're about the same size. They're about the same length. At first glance, it's an EVGA card. The reference cards almost look exactly the same. Some of the cooling, though, is different. Nvidia has changed the cooling system in the back. I don't think they use exactly the same vapor cooling mechanism as before, and as a result, they have a lot more ventilation in the front in the 980, but cooling is less of a problem because with the 900 series, power efficiency is just so good. While the 780s, the 780 Ti's, and the Titans had a TDP, that's the maximum wattage a graphics card can use at load of 250 watts, this is only 165, and the 970, only 145. That's a significant power advantage to a point where if you look at the top, it only requires two PCIe 6-pin connectors, not even a 6-pin and an 8-pin, or two 8-pins. That makes potentially SLI using two graphics cards in tandem very possible and won't have as much drain on your power supply, or if you want to overclock these cards. Now, I'll talk about that in a little bit. Along with the Maxwell architecture, there's support for new DX11.3, I believe, protocols, and there's also a few new features that Nvidia has incorporated in Maxwell. I think some of these features may be more impressive than some of the other ones. Nvidia has incorporated a new type of anti-aliasing called MFAA that's currently not implemented in the driver system. It will come in the future and maybe trickle down to past generation cards. That's a new type of anti-aliasing method where it samples half the number of samples required for MSAA, but produces about the same result. It's a little technical. Nvidia has a good technical blog about that. Something that's getting a lot of buzz is their Voxel global illumination system. Global illumination is the idea that you can have a light in a video game and actually trace the paths of the light so it actually bounces at least twice to create a very realistic approximation of how light bounces around. Right now in graphics in game engines, all that lighting is approximated, it's done beforehand, and it's completely not dynamic, not as dynamic as ray tracing, for example. With voxel-based global illumination, Nvidia it's not exactly ray tracing. They're doing some tricks with voxels, or splitting geometric objects into a lot of cubes and figuring out the way the light bounces off of those, and it is still a big performance hit. It's about a 20% performance hit if you incorporate that light in, and it's only one light source, and we won't see games that take advantage of that till probably next year. Unreal Engine 4 is probably the first engine that will use the voxel-based global illumination in Q4 is when Nvidia says that will be built in. But one feature I do like, and I've actually been trying a lot, is the dynamic super resolution. Most people know this as downsampling. It's the idea of rendering in the buffer in the graphics card higher resolution than your monitor needs. For example, if you have a 1920 by 1080 monitor, or 2560 by 1440, or 2560 by 1600, rendering it higher, double that resolution, maybe even 4K resolution, higher than that, and then actually just squeezing that in so you get smooth lines. It's another way of aliasing. Nvidia in the control panel, you can enable this in the GeForce experience or the control panel. You can actually set max resolutions to 1.2 your normal resolution, or up to 4 times your monitor's normal resolution for 4K, and then that all gets sampled down. That does, again, affect the performance. It's just super sampling, but you do get very smooth lines. If you're playing a game and you have a 1080p display and you get over 120 FPS, for example, it's worth turning that on, like 1.5 or 2x resolution. Your screenshots will look better, and your video recording, because with Shadowplay, you can actually record now up to 4K at 60 FPS, 130 megabits. You can put that on YouTube and have really nice quality video game captured videos. In terms of I/O, there's only one DVI, dual link DVI port on the 980 series, as opposed to 2 on the 700 series, but you do have 3 DisplayPort 1.3s or 1.2s, as well as HDMI 2.0, which does support 4K at 60 FPS, 60 hertz. So this is future-proofing for 4K monitors, which right now we don't recommend buying on the desktop. In actual performance, though, it's very, very power efficient. 165 watt TDP. It's super quiet, whisper quiet at idle. At load, it's not even louder than my other fans I have on the system, but not that big of a performance increase over the 780 and 780 Ti's. In my testing, at 1080p resolution, for example, it's about a 10% increase on games like Batman Arkham City, Arkham Origins, BioShock Infinite, Dirt, and even Metro, maybe a little less than Metro, because that's a very intensive game. But on the 2560 by 1600 resolution, I'm only seeing about a 5% performance increase, and in some cases, in some benchmarks, basically on the same level as a 780. So if you're looking to buy a new GPU today, Nvidia has probably the best options out there. On the ATI side, the 290X just can't compare to the 980. It's $550 for the 980 GTX. If you have a 780, I'd say don't get it now. I know a lot of people want to upgrade their video cards for VR, and there are some VR optimizations, but Nvidia is going to have a new card next year. Get that one. Your 780 is going to be fine now. If you have a 600 series video card, by all means, upgrade. If you have the money, spend $550, get the 980 GTX. If you want to spend a little less, you can actually do the 970 at $330. That is a great card. And if you have a GTX 770, I think either the 970 or the 980, it's a little splurgy, but they'll be worthwhile upgrades. And like I said, you can overclock this. There's a lot of headroom in this. I was able to overclock. NVIDIA doesn't include the overclocking software, but you can download it elsewhere, the Riva Tuner, MSI. You can get about a 10% overclock easily. It does consume more power. It does get louder. I know that you can overclock the memory, which is running at 4 gigs of memory, running at 7 gigahertz DDR3. You can overclock that up to 7.5, 7.6, maybe 7.8. I've been running this at 7.4 gigahertz in the memory, and the base clock here I've put in about 125 megahertz over, which gets it about, with the boost clock, about 1400 megahertz. That's fast. Again, the GeForce GTX 980, it's available now. NVIDIA is upgrading drivers. I'm sure MFA will come out pretty soon. You won't see any of the benefits of the global illumination stuff till probably early next year, but from a straight performance standpoint, it is quiet, it's power efficient, and it's the best video card out there right now. So I'll be doing more benchmarks. You find more of all this stuff on tested.com. I'm Norm, and I'll see you next time.